So far, James Webb Space Telescope is doing a very good job on its way out there. Basically, a lot of the things they were doing, first thing was obviously get the solar panels out, get them deployed so you can start charging up those batteries so you have onboard power. Once they got out a little bit further, they started getting the heat shields. And what that does is it protects the actual telescope side, the instruments of the spacecraft from the sun that it's going to experience. So it's been a lot of fun watching all the content that's out there. There's a lot of space and science communicators that I'm talking about James Webb Space Telescope. It was a long time coming, and if you go back, we did an episode where we were talking about the challenges, almost 3 decades of James Webb Space Telescope getting to this point, of actually getting to the point where it can launch, and seeing them perform at such a high level with something that has been so delicate and critical. They performed when they needed to. They performed, and it getting to launch was the biggest struggle, it seems so far. Knock on wood, because we are superstitious here, or at least we'll do whatever helps. So like we talked about, James Webb Space Telescope launched on Christmas morning. Again, flawless launch, given all the struggles that it went through. And after decades of struggle, we talked about it just a second ago, but that episode where we discussed all the challenges that James Webb Space Telescope has had over its 3 decades. Think about the story that tells. After decades of struggle and doubt, and what is it going to launch? Is James Webb Space Telescope going to launch? And how many delays happened, and how many times we were let down by the expectations of what it could be, and what we wanted to do, and then what ended up being the reality of what we could do. I mean, doesn't that spell so much? We're talking about the balance, right? Doesn't that encapsulate what's going on in our world right now, right? Where there's so much that needs to be worked on, and it's such a difficult time. This is a message, James Webb Space Telescope's mission of getting out, to be able for us to have early astronomical evidence of what the first universes are, what the first light did after the universe began. I think that's a hopeful message for what we're going through now with COVID-19, and how the world either goes back to normal or becomes something new that we can then continue our lives with and not feel like it's never ending. I think there is some hope in that, even though that there is struggle. It is not definite. The struggle it could be also a representation of the incredible size, metaphorically, of the task at hand, right? Sending a telescope that's better than Hubble, that helps us look back into the past, I guess is not a surprise in retrospect that it would be difficult to get it there. Almost like in a Greek comedy kind of thing, where it's like it seems like it would be a really easy thing, but in our, it's like that in life, right? There are things you want to do in life, you think it's going to be easy. My example's going to college and becoming an aerospace engineer. That challenge was so much more difficult, and it really had little to do with the content that I was learning. It wasn't that I couldn't learn the content. It was everything around it, right? Life, figuring out how my brain works so that I could study properly for my own brain, and not feel constantly like I couldn't learn anything, or I wasn't smart enough. I was just doing it in a way that just didn't work for me. And when I figured that out, things started to line up. It was really amazing. And then, of course, just growing up at that time, I was not in a great spot. And that's kind of, NASA's had such a struggle in this time period of James Webb Space Telescope, right? The end of Space Shuttle program, kind of losing focus of where we were going to end up going after Space Shuttle, and how we kind of stagnated for the last 2 decades at least. James Webb Space Telescope is part of that story of the growing of NASA. And think about how much struggle it was to get that out, but think about now where NASA is, and where the space program is right now across the planet, where we have on record, I think this is the most orbital rocket launches that have ever happened, beating out some of the early space race years of the 1960s. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think there still might be a launch today, I don't remember, But I think that number still needs to be calculated. But regardless, we're now at this place where not only have we had the most orbital rocket launches of all time, we've also had a successful mission to Mars. Multiple countries have had successful missions to Mars. We've had all of the development with SpaceX and launching things into orbit. We've had the return of human space flight with NASA's Commercial Crew Program, with SpaceX, with Crew Dragon, now repeatedly and sending up more and more missions to the International Space Station to keep and reinvigorate the human spaceflight program for the U.S., where we haven't had that option to send our own astronauts on our own rockets on our own soil for a very, very long time. Again, part of that James Webb Space Telescope era. There's been so much that has happened. The first all-civilian orbital flight with Inspiration 4, which without a doubt I think is top mission of the entire year.